Hi folks, glad you could join me today. You know, stories have this amazing way of connecting us. They remind us we're not alone, and sometimes they even give us a new perspective. What we're about to dive into is a mix of all that. Funny, strange, and maybe even a little eye-opening. So settle in, enjoy, and then tell me what you think in the comments below. Let's start a conversation, and if you're enjoying these moments together, don't forget to subscribe for more. So to start this post off, it's important to note that we have a 2-year-old daughter and a baby on the way. My wife is 8 months pregnant. I cheated on her when we were in a LDR when I went to work at a destination ski resort. We had been dating for 2-3 months, and I cheated on her days after her dad had passed away via suicide. When I cheated, I thought that our relationship was over. She had barely responded to texts or calls for several days, so I thought that she had moved on. Now I know that she was just overcome with grief and wasn't able to do much of anything besides mourn. Eventually, she talked to me and asked me to come to her father's funeral. I drove 13 hours each way to make it there and be there for her in her time of need. At the time, I didn't tell her I had had sex with someone else, and hid the fact when I came back months later. Days after I came back to her area, she went on my Facebook and found flirty messages to a different coworker and broke up with me. She agreed to meet me a few days later and took me back. A month later, we found out that she was pregnant from when we had sex the first day that I got back. Ever since then, we've had what I view as a mostly successful relationship and have a loving, caring relationship as a couple and with our daughter. Less than a year ago, my wife's female cousin had gossiped about her in the family and told other female cousins that she had cheated on me. My wife never told me about this rumor going around until just before my in-laws' big holiday party where this circulated around. And my wife and I were embarrassed when the cousin who had spread the rumor denied it. And her boyfriend said that my wife had slept with a bunch of his friends. Obviously, this hurt me to hear my wife in front of her, very religious, large family shamed for her sexual past. To make matters worse, her family largely took the side of her cousin and was convinced that she had never spread this rumor. When I asked my wife if it was true that night, she was crying profusely, and through sobs she told me it wasn't, and that she had only dated one of her cousin's boyfriend's friends, and that it was a lie. I was skeptical and tried to ask more about it then and later, but she was adamant that it was only the one. When we went home, I became consumed with finding out the truth, and it turned into an unhealthy obsession. I used my Facebook to look at her entire timeline, all of her friends, her cousin's friends, her cousin's boyfriend's friends to see where the overlap was of those who she could have slept with. Ironically, the evidence of her hookup was not found on any of her social media accounts, but instead in a handful of pictures from her Instax camera. I confronted her about this person and a list of all potential names, and she stuck to her story and said it was only the one that she had dated. Fast forward a few months, and her sexual history came up again as she was talking about her male friend, Jay, from high school, and she said that we would get along if I met him. From my previous cyber stalking, I know that they have a picture together on Instagram, which is just the two of them on a supposed date. He is an attractive guy, and they have kept in touch over the years with cute nicknames. This is where I really crossed the line. I accessed her old computer and copied the iPhone backups to my computer, and used an iPhone backup extractor to get and analyze everything: text messages, phone calls, voicemails, photos, videos, etc. In addition, I did the same to her new computer and also accessed her Google, Facebook, and Twitter accounts. I used Google Takeout and downloaded the file to pore over all the emails, searches, location history, etc. on that account. I went on her Facebook and accessed a list of her entire activity log, all of her hidden posts, her friends added/removed, and all of her searches. This was the most hurtful of all because of her repeated searches for certain exes while we have been together. On Twitter, I had previously archived her tweets, which when I went to look again, she deleted many of the sexual ones from before we met that I had already archived. Also, I read her journals which she had hidden in her closet and made copies of the entries. From all this data, I spent hours and hours making a spreadsheet and poring over information about her past, looking at thousands of photos, connecting them with her text messages, tweets, Facebook searches, /posts, /friending, Google searches, and journal entries to get a hookup list and detailed map of her past from college to now. At this point, it wasn't about either of the two hookups that she had lied about. I was unhealthily fixated on getting all the information I could about her, as I tried to convince myself that it wasn't hurtful to read and see all of the history she had and her thoughts about being with past lovers and boyfriends, and compare myself to them and my relationship with her to her past in every way imaginable. Months later, it was when she watched a Snapchat story of one of her past hookups, W, and started talking about him that I couldn't take anymore. She had always said that they had a platonic relationship, but I knew this was wrong. I had seen a picture of her naked and turned away, presumably sleeping on his bed, which he surreptitiously took and texted to her, to which she never responded. I left the room and went to our daughter's room where she was, and my wife followed me. I can't remember what I said exactly, but it was along the lines of, "I don't like hearing / seeing about your ex hookups," or "It makes me uncomfortable to see your ex's / ex hookups on social media." Whatever it was, I will forever remember her response, "Do you think I just sleep with every guy I talk to?" I was so angry and upset that I couldn't even respond. I remember just shaking my head and being speechless until the subject changed to putting our daughter to bed, and we moved past it and didn't talk about it for the rest of the night. Within the last week, I finally came clean about my snooping and told her that I knew she slept with the guy from her Instagram photo, and I wanted to know why she lied to me about it. I asked if she slept with the guy who took a nude photo of her, and she told me she did. I asked why she lied to me about this, and she told me that she was embarrassed and had a lot of people that she slept with because she was lonely or desperate that she was ashamed about. She answered question after question that I had, and told me things about herself that she had never told anyone. When it came to her sexual partner count, she could only give a close approximation of 49, 15-20 in high school, and the number only grew from there. I gave her my whole list of 7, and when I slept with them. In doing so, I told her about the secret that I had kept from her for years. I had slept with someone when we were long distance and had never told her about it. I told her it was at the beginning of our time apart, which wasn't totally correct. It was during the first month, but not the very beginning when I had said. She was interested in the person I cheated with. She always jokes about me having an Asian fetish, and the person was Asian. And I told her her name and that we had only done it once, and I cut romantic ties after that. That night I was happy that I had come clean and gotten everything off of my mind, because my guilt, doubt, and insecurity had been boiling over and affecting not only my relationship, but my day-to-day life and responsibilities. I was also surprised that my wife had accepted my breach of privacy into her life to catch her in a lie, and had felt so comfortable with me to be honest and share beyond what I knew to allow me to understand her, which I wanted to know to move forward. The next day, Saturday, I was gone most of the day and night for an event. While I was gone, she snooped on my computer and saw the spreadsheet I had created, how I had learned those things about her, and the texts, social media, pictures, and journals I had copied and referenced. When I came back at 4 am, she woke up but didn't say a word about it until I brought it up later that day. She told me how much of a breach of trust it was, how it was creepy and scary for her, and that she had looked up the person I cheated with and saw a picture of us on her Instagram dated days before I came back to her. This picture was accurate. She was a coworker that I gave a ride to one day. She was a foreigner with no car, and we had got off work at the same time because my schedule had been switched around for my last days. Besides our single tryst, I never had any other romantic interactions with her, but my wife wouldn't hear it. She was convinced that I had an affair lasting the entire time I was gone and wouldn't believe me because she said, and was correct, that my timing of my cheating was not right. She wanted time alone and went in our bedroom and cried and slept as our daughter napped. I tried to help prepare for the baby by putting together a stroller we had bought, and when I went into the bedroom, she wouldn't touch me or talk to me. She just left. I woke up when she sent our daughter into our room to tell me what she wanted for dinner. We had a nice family dinner at a new restaurant, and I ordered a margarita that we shared. The family time and alcohol seemed to soften her mood and my wife, and I shared some short kisses before we went a walk along the boardwalk and spent some time at a local arcade. She talked about the last time she had an experience with the arcade, which was on a date with one of her past lovers, who she had a texting relationship for a long time that ended the year we met. It hurt to hear, and I asked for more details even though I shouldn't have. He is one that she repeatedly searched on Facebook after we were dating, married, and seemed to have a real connection with. The rest of the evening out was rather uneventful. We had a fun time with our daughter, walked back to our car and drove home. Once home, we split up chores, put our daughter to sleep and put on a movie. During the movie, she cuddled with me but not too much, and refused to kiss me back with small pecks that we were doing earlier that night, right after dinner. When we went to sleep, it was late, so she was tired and didn't want to talk and kicked my leg away when I tried to cuddle with her. This morning, after all of that, I went to work and immediately tried to do a password reset for her old email she had mentioned had love letters/emails she wanted to recover and read again. The info was wrong, and I triggered a Google account security notice by logging into her email to try and delete the confirmation code sent. I texted her right after and told her of my insecurities and how I'm still doing the wrong thing in response. She texted me and asked me if I tried to access her account, and I told her I did and why. She responded by reassuring me that I have nothing to worry about in regards to her exes and that they are in the past. That I shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed of my single-digit partner count, and that this stems from her cousin's boyfriend planting the seed of doubt which has caused or contributed to the issues we face. She told me she would forgive me in time and that this is my second chance to be faithful and there will be no third chance. She asked me to stop logging in, invading her privacy and checking her past messages, that this is responsible for giving me confidence issues and it only hurts our relationship. She told me if I have any questions about her, I need to just ask her, and to stop torturing myself and her by bringing up all of these things in the wrong way. That she's happy we have a family together and that there's nothing worth finding out from her past. I guess my question after writing all of this is, where do we go from here? How do I give her the support and commitment that I know she deserves while still letting her come to terms with the fact that I was unfaithful? We had a family together before we were married, and I feel like a totally different person than when we first started dating. I have no excuse for why I cheated or why it took so long to tell her, but I truly do feel remorse for my actions after seeing how much it hurts my wife, and I am committed to making sure nothing like that ever happens again. TLDR, I cheated on my wife when we first started dating with a one-night stand. Recently, rumors from her family that she cheated on me convinced me to leave no stone unturned to discover who she cheated with. All I found was that she had a high number of sexual partners and former lovers that she pined over post-breakup and looked up on social media. In coming to terms with that, I told her I accessed her social media accounts, read her journal, and did have one indiscretion with intercourse while we were apart during our soon-to-be 5-year relationship. Story 2: my husband and I have been together for 18 years, married for 8. He's always had a lot of female friends. In fact, I was his best friend before we got together. When we were 19, he had an emotional affair with a female friend/coworker. I was about to leave him, and he begged me to stay. We didn't really handle the healing part very well, neither of us knew what we were doing, and for years after I struggled with feeling entirely secure in our relationship. I did the best I could over the years to manage my jealousy, but it was rough since he continued to maintain friendships with other women, including new women he'd meet over time through work, friends, etc. I never had any evidence he was unfaithful again, so I tried hard to just swallow it. I never told him he couldn't be friends with any particular female, even the ones I didn't exactly feel comfortable with, because I didn't want to be that girlfriend/wife. I didn't want to control him, but I also struggled with these friendships, and he knew that I did. We got married, and a few months later we went through a series of really traumatic things at work and within our families. We were both really stressed out, and he went into a bad depression for a while and escaped into playing video games on Steam. He'd play with other people and met a couple of women through there that he started conversing with outside of just game playing. One was a 22-year-old girl, Amber, who lived 400 miles away. About a year later, when we were about 30, I learned that he was having an online emotional affair with Amber. I caught him chatting with her on the webcam downstairs around midnight when I woke up to get a drink of water. I heard his conversation with her, nothing shocking, but the tone was very flirtatious. And then when I walked into the room, I saw her on the webcam topless. DH immediately chased after me, crying and apologizing and telling me everything. There was some trickled truth, but for the most part he answered all of my questions. He even voluntarily told me that he had also been texting with another girl, Sarah, he had known since high school, a really skanky girl, and talking about anal, something we don't do, and mutually agree we don't want to try. I also learned he had been texting back and forth with Amber about 3,000 times a month, plus some phone calls and frequent web chats. They had never met in person, but had talked about the possibility since he was possibly going to be traveling to her area for work later that month, though that didn't actually end up happening. Their friendship had been going on for nearly a year, and at least 5 months of that, partially verified from the snooping I did, was definitely inappropriate. Amber had a long-term boyfriend too, and she knew he was married. I wasn't sure whether to leave him or stay and work it out. I loved him very much, but I was absolutely crushed. We had just bought a house and were married less than 2 years, and I had spent my entire adult life with him at that point and didn't want to throw that away. I went to individual therapy, and that was very helpful in giving me the strength to decide, and to even work on fixing some of my own issues I was bringing into the marriage. My therapist was supportive of my decision. I spent 2 years with her. He begged for me to stay. He told me he'd spend the rest of his life making it up to me. He promised he'd end it and we'd fix things. I insisted on transparency, and we shared passwords to all of our accounts. I had nothing to hide, so I gave him mine too in fairness. I demanded he go no contact. He said he would, but he struggled with it. After a couple of weeks, he actually secretly got back in touch with Amber. And I found out about 3 months later because I stumbled across his calls to her on his work cell phone, made while I was out of town for a weekend at my best friend's bachelorette. It didn't help that we had been seeing a therapist who kept refusing to discuss the affair and acted like it was no big deal. I think this enabled him to continue talking to her behind my back. After that second time, I put my foot down even harder, and he seemed to have a shift in how he was handling everything. He did various things to show me that he ended contact. And when Amber tried to reach out to him one day a few months later on his work cell, saying she missed him, he called me immediately after, near tears, to tell me everything about it. I do believe he was being honest, and I do believe he ended contact with her. We did, of course, have a lot of issues between us beyond just that affair that we needed to work out, not that any of it excused his affair. Since marriage therapy was making things worse, we tried Retro Uville. And immediately after the initial weekend, DH asked to fire our therapist finally. He had been the one wanting to hold on to her. Retro Uville really made a huge difference in our marriage, and we did a lot of really hard work to repair things. Within a few months after completing the program, our relationship felt stronger and better than ever. We both felt really happy and good. We ended up deciding to finally start a family. Through all of this, I still have never told him he can't be friends with other women. And he's even made some new female friends since almost entirely through work. I'm still not comfortable with it, but I feel like I cannot control him, nor should I. I made a choice to stay with him, so I feel like I have a responsibility to forgive him and learn to trust him again. I believe that no matter what I do, if he wants to cheat again, he will, no matter what I do. And I also believe that if he decides that he never wants to cheat again, that is also something he can absolutely do. But I find myself feeling so anxious when he spends time with other females. I hate that he's made new female friends, even though rationally I'm sure they're mostly, if not all, harmless. Logically, I think his intentions are pure with them. I also don't really worry about things turning physical. It's mostly him developing inappropriate emotional intimacy with other women. Heck, one of his newer female friends, they met around the time I discovered his affair through work, is a lesbian and logically isn't a romantic threat. Yet I still find myself feeling threatened by their friendship, since she calls him one of her BFFs now. It probably doesn't help that since having a child, and his work hours getting way worse, we have little quality time together. So we've already been struggling and trying to work through feelings of disconnect with each other. And I feel like these people have more fun with him than I get to. He's the man of honor in her upcoming wedding, and they recently went to Vegas for her co-ed bachelorette party, which I also wasn't comfortable with, but I didn't try to stop because, as I said, I don't want to be that wife. I wasn't invited, partially because it was midweek and I needed to be home with our young child, and also because I'm not really close with the bride since I never get to go out with them. He hangs out with this same group of people frequently, though he has dialed it back some in the last several months, usually going out drinking, eating fancy dinners, karaoke, etc., and coming home really late, sometimes as late as 2 or 3 a.m. Again, I am not generally invited because I have to stay home with our child. These are all pretty much his coworkers, and they work odd shifts, so they often go out on like a Thursday night, but I have to be at work the next morning anyway, so I can't stay out until past midnight drinking even if I wanted to. Emotionally, I keep fearing that it's such a slippery slope, and that he may not intend for things to go wrong with these women he hangs out with / is friends with. But that I'm not 100% confident of his boundaries with other women, even though we have definitely discussed boundaries. And he mostly says the right things, but it's hard for me to fully trust knowing that he is certainly capable of saying anything, and lying to my face and gaslighting just like he did when the affairs were going on. I do think men and women can be friends, but I also think it can be tricky if your boundaries aren't rock solid. I also think that because he has a history of emotional infidelity, having a bunch of good female friends, and possibly being open to meeting more feels sort of a slap in the face to me. But I also don't want it to be. I want to trust him. I want to be comfortable with him being friends with whomever. I want to feel confident that if anything should ever start to go too far with a female friend that he'd do the right thing, but without it happening and him proving that through his actions, I have to accept it on faith, and I feel like I sort of tried that and was burned by that with the last affair. I do feel like he has done a lot of work to overcome what he did and don't want to discount that. I should add that I have talked to him about how I feel. Sometimes I think he gets frustrated that this still eats at me so much, and can get a little upset at me for bringing it all up. But I'd say the majority of the time he's actually pretty patient and even empathetic about it. At times, he's held me, or apologized, or acknowledged my feelings. But he doesn't really offer to do anything in particular, beyond what he already does has done, to make me feel more comfortable or confident. And while I used to snoop, though he knew that I was doing this on occasion, I stopped doing that after about 2 years because I wasn't finding anything, and it started feeling like it was unhealthy. And I don't want to backslide on that and be that wife. I really want to move forward in healing, not backward. I need help figuring out how to get out of these overwhelming emotions of fear, anxiety, hurt, etc. If I could literally just decide to not feel this way, I would in a heartbeat, but these feelings are too powerful to just dismiss them so easily. I want to feel naturally comfortable and confident in our relationship and with his relationships with others. I want to be able to fully forgive and move on and enjoy our life together besides these issues. Most of our relationship is actually pretty good. Any advice on how to get past this? TL, Doctor. DH had 2 emotional affairs, 10 years apart, and we did a lot of work to overcome them, but I can't seem to get to a point where I feel comfortable with his friendships with other females. And since those friendships aren't likely to go away, and I'm not willing to ask for that, I need help figuring out how to honestly be okay with it, and stop fearing that I'm going to end up hurt again.